A shy millionaire, single for 30 years, spends a night with a virgin doctor and is blessed with twins. Hi, my beautiful and loving family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. I want to share something from my heart. It truly hurts when I see many of you leaving the story at the very beginning. This isn't just my channel, it's our family, our home, where we share love, emotions, and unforgettable stories. If the introduction doesn't interest you, please skip it, but don't leave. Stay, feel, and experience the full journey with me. Your support means everything, and together we make this family strong. Please don't forget to like and comment. It's a small way to show love, but it means the world to me. A special prayer for my beautiful sisters. May love surround you, strength uplift you, and joy fill your heart. May every step you take be guided by light, and may you always know how cherished you are. No matter what life brings, may you always find love, peace, and endless happiness. You are the heart of this family, and I love you dearly. Now let's begin with love. Travis Head sat alone in his penthouse office, gazing out at the city skyline as dusk painted the horizon in shades of amber and gold. 48 floors above the bustling streets, he could see everything yet touch nothing. An apt metaphor for his life. At 48 years old, Travis had built pinnacle innovations from a garage startup into a tech empire worth billions. Yet his personal life remained an empty canvas. The financial papers called him the reclusive titan, a moniker that suited him all too well. The setting sun caught on the glass and steel monuments he could see from his window, some of them housing companies he owned outright, others competitors he'd outmaneuvered. His reflection stared back at him, salt and pepper hair still thick despite the stress of empire building, amber eyes sharp behind designer glasses, face handsome but etched with solitude. He adjusted his perfectly tailored charcoal suit, armor really, and turned away from the view. "Another invitation, Mr. Head," his executive assistant Jackson announced, placing an elegant cream envelope on the immaculate glass desk. Jackson had perfected the art of entering a room silently, a skill Travis appreciated. Travis didn't even glance at the envelope, the gold-embossed lettering screaming of another social obligation he had no intention of fulfilling. Charity Gala. Wedding. Ms. Kincaid from marketing. She specifically mentioned hoping you'd attend. Jackson's tone was professional, but Travis detected the slight note of hope. Jackson had been trying to coax him into social situations for years. A familiar discomfort tightened Travis's chest, a sensation he'd felt so often it might as well be an old friend. His heart rate increased slightly, his palms grew clammy, physical manifestations of the wall he'd built around himself decades ago. "Send the standard gift package and my regrets." Jackson nodded, having expected this response. In the decade he'd worked for Travis, his boss had never accepted a personal invitation. The rumors around the office had reached mythical proportions. Some said he'd had his heart broken by a gold digger. Others whispered about a secret family hidden away in Europe. Some of the younger staff members had an ongoing bet about whether he was actually a vampire, explaining both his pallor and his aversion to social gatherings. The truth was simpler and more complex all at once. Growing up in foster care, bounced between 7 homes before he turned 16, Travis had learned early that connection meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant pain. His genius with technology had been his escape, and now his shield. The few times he'd attempted relationships in his 20s had ended in disaster, with women more interested in his growing bank account than the man behind it. The board meeting. "Is moved to Thursday," Jackson continued, tapping notes into his tablet. "Dr. Winters called about your annual physical, third reminder, and the Tokyo acquisition paperwork needs your signature by tomorrow." Travis nodded absently, his attention caught by a young couple walking hand in hand in the park across from his building. The woman said something that made the man throw his head back in laughter. Their easy intimacy carried faintly through the glass. Something inside him ached, with a longing so profound it almost made him gasp. He watched as the man pulled the woman close, kissing her forehead with casual tenderness, a simple gesture that seemed as foreign to Travis as flying without wings. 30 years of solitude wrapped around him like a familiar coat, comfortable, predictable, and increasingly heavy. Sometimes, in moments like this, he wondered what his life might have been with someone to share it. The thought always dissolved quickly under the weight of experience and reality. Also, Jackson added, watching his boss carefully, the new chief of medical research starts tomorrow. Dr. Blossom's credentials are exceptional. Princeton undergrad, Harvard Medical, groundbreaking research in regenerative medicine. Good, Travis muttered, finally turning away from the window. The couple had disappeared around a bend in the path. We need someone who can push that division forward. The last director was too cautious with the funding. Her TED Talk on neural regeneration has over 5 million views, Jackson added. Apparently she turned down offers from 3 pharmaceutical giants to join us. Smart woman, Travis said, settling into his ergonomic chair. With us, she'll have complete research freedom without corporate pharmaceutical constraints. Jackson hesitated, then added, the executive welcome dinner is tomorrow evening. As CEO, your presence would... Send my regrets, Travis interrupted, opening his laptop. I have the Singapore conference call. That's at 4, sir. The dinner's at 7. Travis fixed Jackson with a look that had sent boardroom opponents scrambling. I'll need to prepare for the Asia market questions. Send my regrets, Jackson. His assistant nodded, recognizing defeat. Yes, Mr. Head. As Jackson quietly exited, Travis returned to the cityscape view, the digital clock on his desk marking another day in his self-imposed isolation. He had an empire that spanned continents, technologies that had changed the world, wealth beyond imagination, and dinner alone, yet again. He pulled up Dr. Nova Blossom's file on his computer, something he'd done multiple times since approving. Her appointment. Her credentials were indeed impressive, but it was her research approach that had caught his attention. Innovative yet methodical, daring yet grounded in scientific rigor. In her TED Talk, she'd spoken with a passion for healing that resonated with something deep inside him, something he'd long thought dormant. Travis clicked on her photo, professional, polished, with intelligent eyes that seemed to look right through the camera into the viewer. Something about her gaze made him uncomfortable, as if she could see past his carefully constructed barriers. He closed the file abruptly and turned to quarterly projections instead, safer territory by far. Numbers, data, market trends. These were predictable, controllable, unlike people, unlike emotions. That night, in his luxurious but sterile penthouse apartment, Travis stood at the window watching the city lights below. From this height, people were just tiny specks moving through their interconnected lives. He'd made his peace with observing rather than participating in that dance of human connection. Or so he thought. Little did he know that Dr. Nova Blossom would push far more than his medical division into uncharted territory. The woman who would arrive tomorrow would challenge every wall he'd built, every defense he'd perfected, every certainty he'd established about his solitary existence. For the first time in decades, Travis Head was about to face something his brilliant mind couldn't control, strategize, or escape: his own heart. Chapter 2. The Healing Touch. Nova Blossom adjusted her crisp white coat and took a deep breath before entering Pinnacle Tower. The morning sun transformed the building's glass exterior into a glittering beacon against the city skyline, appropriate for a company that prided itself on illuminating the future. At 36, she had already revolutionized cellular regeneration therapy, presented at medical conferences worldwide, and earned the respect of the international medical community. Yet today, butterflies danced in her stomach. She smoothed her hands over her tailored navy dress beneath the lab coat, the fabric expensive but understated, much like the woman herself. Her dark skin glowed with natural radiance, her braids elegantly swept into a professional updo that highlighted her high cheekbones and expressive brown eyes. Around her neck hung a small pendant, a gift from her mother before cancer took her too soon. Leading Pinnacle's medical research division represented more than a career advancement. It was personal. The company's resources could help her research reach patients faster, including those with conditions like her late mother's. That connection had driven every step of her academic and professional journey. "First day jitters?" asked the security guard with a kind smile as he issued her badge. "That obvious?" Nova laughed, her melodic voice carrying across the marble lobby. "Everyone gets them, even the big boss himself, though that was long before my time." The guard handed her the badge with a wink. "But between us, you've got nothing to worry about. Your reputation precedes you, Dr. Blossom." Nova smiled, but inwardly wondered what exactly her reputation entailed. Her stellar research record, or perhaps the whispers that followed successful women in male-dominated fields, assumptions about who she might have known rather than what she actually knew. Her cab driver that morning had recognized the Pinnacle logo on her offer letter. "Travis Head? Man's a genius, but strange one. Never sees nobody. Runs his empire from the shadows." The driver had eyed her in the rear-view mirror. "They say he interviews people by video only, won't even be in the same room." "True? I never interviewed with him directly," Nova had replied, which only seemed to confirm the driver's theories about the eccentric billionaire. Now, riding the elevator to the executive floor for her orientation, Nova wondered what kind of man her new employer would be. Eccentric billionaires weren't exactly known for their people skills. Would he be like the pharmaceutical executives who viewed medical breakthroughs solely through the lens of profit margins? Or perhaps an absent figurehead who would give her free rein? The elevator doors opened to reveal a sleek reception area where a poised woman waited. "Dr. Blossom, welcome to Pinnacle. I'm Sophia, Head of Human Resources. We're thrilled to have you joining us." The orientation process was thorough but efficient. Benefits explained, security protocols detailed, company philosophy outlined. Nova absorbed it all while noting the underlying current of reverence. Whenever Travis Head's name was mentioned, "Mr. Head has authorized unlimited research funding for your department," Sophia explained, her tone suggesting this was highly unusual. "He was quite specific about ensuring you have every resource necessary." Nova raised an eyebrow. "That's generous." "It's unprecedented," Sophia corrected. "Mr. Head is known for his rigorous budget oversight. Your department is the first to receive such latitude." The medical division occupied 3 floors of cutting-edge laboratories and research facilities that made her previous university lab look like a high school science classroom. The equipment was state-of-the-art, much of it custom-designed for specific research applications. During her tour, researchers and doctors approached her with admiration and excitement. Her reputation had indeed preceded her. "Your work on tissue regeneration was brilliant," gushed Dr. Lowenthal, who would be her deputy. He was 60-something with kind eyes behind thick glasses and a tendency to talk with his hands. "We've been stagnating here, honestly. The funding is magnificent, but we needed fresh vision." Nova watched as technicians calibrated a sophisticated cellular mapping device she'd only read about in journals. This equipment must have cost millions. "Mr. Head authorized the purchase last month," Dr. Lowenthal explained. "Said it was essential to the new research direction. That was right after he approved your appointment." "Why hasn't Mr. Head recruited someone sooner?" Nova asked as they entered a laboratory where technicians were conducting experiments with stem cells. Doctor. Lowenthal lowered his voice, glancing around as if the walls might be listening. He's particular. Interviewed 20 candidates personally over 2 years. Most never even saw him. Video conferences only. You're the first he approved. Nova raised an eyebrow. I never interviewed with him. Exactly. Dr. Lowenthal looked meaningful. He reviewed your research, watched your TED Talk, and approved your appointment immediately. Unprecedented. Nova felt a curious mixture of pride and unease. Had her work truly impressed Travis Head, or had he simply grown tired of the search? As they rounded a corner toward the main research hub, Nova collided with a tall figure exiting a conference room. The impact sent her folders scattering across the polished floor. I'm so sorry, she began, kneeling to gather her materials, then looking up into the most penetrating amber eyes she'd ever seen. The man seemed frozen, staring at her with an unreadable expression. He wore no badge, just an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that contrasted with his salt and pepper hair. His features were aristocratic, high cheekbones, strong jawline, straight nose. But it was his eyes that captured her attention. They held intelligence, certainly, but also something deeper, something almost haunted. Dr. Lowenthal had gone pale. Mr. Head, I'm showing Dr. Blossom around the facilities. Travis Head, the reclusive billionaire himself. Nova hadn't expected to encounter him so soon, or so literally. Dr. Blossom, Travis said, his deep voice barely above a whisper. He extended his hand mechanically, as if remembering a long-forgotten social protocol. Nova took it, feeling an unexpected current pass between them, like static electricity, but warmer, more insistent. His palm was surprisingly calloused for a corporate executive, his grip firm yet careful, as if he feared breaking something fragile. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Mr. Head. Your vision for this research center is extraordinary. Travis seemed to struggle for words, an experience clearly foreign to him. His eyes darted from her face to their still joined hands and back again. Your paper on neural regeneration pathways was enlightening. The implications for spinal cord injuries. Alone, he trailed off, releasing her hand abruptly. A muscle twitched in his jaw, as if he was fighting some internal battle. Before Nova could respond, Travis nodded curtly and continued down the hallway, his assistant hurrying to keep pace. She couldn't help noticing how other employees flattened, themselves against walls as he passed, their expressions a mixture of awe and terror. Well, Dr. Lowenthal breathed, helping Nova with the last of her scattered papers. That was unusual. He rarely speaks to anyone directly, let alone compliments their work. Nova watched Travis's retreating form. Curiosity piqued. Interesting man. More interesting, Dr. Lowenthal said, is that he's read your research. Mr. Head oversees dozens of companies. He must have studied your work carefully. Nova smiled thoughtfully. Then I hope he's ready for my proposals. I have big plans for this division. The rest of the day passed in a blur of introductions and facility tours. By evening, Nova's head buzzed with possibilities for research, directions and collaborations. She was the last to leave, reviewing lab protocols until security gently reminded her of the time. Outside, the night air was cool against her skin. Nova declined a company car, preferring to walk a few blocks to clear her head before hailing a taxi. As she strolled past high-end boutiques and restaurants, her thoughts returned to her brief encounter with Travis Head. His knowledge of her work had been impressive, but more intriguing was the intensity in his gaze, as if he was seeing something beyond the professional facade she presented to the world. It had been disconcerting and oddly exhilarating. Passing a newsstand, Nova noticed a business magazine with Travis's photo on the cover. "The Invisible Empire Builder," the headline proclaimed. The image showed him at some tech conference, expression remote, eyes guarded, nothing like the momentary vulnerability she'd glimpsed today. She couldn't know that Travis Head had not only read her papers, but had followed her career for years, drawn to her brilliant mind long before he'd ever seen her face. Nor could she guess how profoundly their brief encounter had affected the solitary billionaire who was, at that very moment, sitting in his office with his heart racing like a teenager's, wondering why, after 30 years of practiced indifference, he suddenly cared what someone else thought of him. Chapter 3. Collision Course. 3 weeks into her tenure at Pinnacle, Nova had already transformed the research department's atmosphere. Her open-door policy and collaborative approach energized the team, and her laugh often echoed through laboratories that had previously been solemn places. She instituted weekly research forums where even junior scientists could present ideas, and meditation sessions to stimulate creative thinking. The once sterile corridors now featured digital displays of ongoing projects, making the invisible work of cellular research visible to all who passed by. The medical floors buzzed with a new energy, and with whispers about their reclusive CEO's unusual behavior. Travis found himself inventing reasons to visit the medical floors, something he'd never done before. He'd appear unannounced, ostensibly checking on equipment investments or budget allocations. Though he maintained his characteristic stoic expression, his eyes betrayed a focus that had nothing to do with balance sheets or investment returns. The staff noticed, exchanging glances whenever their reclusive CEO appeared shortly after Dr. Blossom mentioned a breakthrough or challenge. "He's come down more in the past month than in the last 5 years combined," whispered Diane from biochemistry to her colleague as they watched Travis listening intently to Nova's explanation of her latest research protocol. "And have you noticed he only comes when she's here?" Marcus from data analysis nudged her. "Yesterday he asked me about her research schedule." Travis Head asking about someone else's schedule, the man who once went 3 weeks without speaking to anyone except his assistant. Nova remained oblivious to the office gossip, focused entirely on her work. When Travis appeared during her presentations, asking incisive questions that revealed his deep understanding of her research, she saw only a dedicated CEO with an impressive scientific background. His questions challenged her thinking, pushing her to refine approaches she might otherwise have overlooked. "Your proposal for using modified stem cells to regenerate damaged nerve tissue is promising," Travis said during one such discussion, his voice careful and measured. "But have you considered the immune response complications in older patients?" Nova looked up from her microscope, impressed. "Actually, yes. We're developing a companion immunosuppressant protocol that's targeted specifically to the regeneration site, minimizes systemic effects while maximizing acceptance." A ghost of a smile crossed Travis's face. Elegant solution. What Nova couldn't see was how Travis rehearsed questions before these spontaneous visits, or how he spent evenings studying medical journals to keep pace with her brilliant mind. She didn't notice how his eyes followed her movements, how he leaned slightly toward her when she spoke, or how his normally impassive face softened in her presence. Jackson noticed, however. After a meeting where Travis had approved Nova's budget request without a single question, unprecedented in company history, his loyal assistant broached the subject. "Dr. Blossom seems to be making excellent progress," Jackson ventured, carefully as they returned to Travis's office. "Her work is exceptional," Travis replied neutrally. "You've been taking a personal interest in her department." Travis stopped walking, fixing Jackson with a stare that would have intimidated anyone else. "I take a personal interest in all departments that show promise." Jackson, emboldened by 10 years of service, pressed on. "You've never attended the neuroscience team's weekly meetings before. Now you haven't missed one in 3 weeks." A muscle twitched in Travis's jaw. "Is there a point to this observation?" "No point, sir. Just an observation." Jackson's expression remained professional, but his eyes held knowing amusement. "The quarterly budget meeting is tomorrow at 2. Dr. Blossom will be presenting." "I'm aware of my schedule," Travis said curtly, striding into his office and closing the door with unusual force. Alone, he stood at his window, gazing out at the city below but seeing nothing. What was happening to him? He'd built his life around control of his companies, his emotions, his interactions. Now he found himself drawn like a magnet to the medical department, manufacturing flimsy excuses to be in Nova's presence. It was irrational, unprofessional, completely unlike him, and yet he couldn't stop. During one late evening, Nova was alone in her lab, reviewing cellular growth patterns under a high-powered microscope. The building had emptied hours ago. Even the cleaning crew had finished their rounds. She preferred working in this peaceful solitude, with classical music playing softly from her computer. Tonight, Yo-Yo Ma's Bach cello suites created the perfect soundtrack for scientific discovery. The sensation of being watched prickled at her awareness. She looked up to find Travis standing in the doorway, hesitant to enter. He wore no suit jacket, his crisp white shirt rolled up at the sleeves, revealing surprisingly muscular forearms. Without his corporate armor, he looked almost approachable. "Mr. Ed," she greeted him with a warm smile. "It's nearly midnight. I thought I was the only workaholic here." Travis stepped into the lab, awkward yet determined. "Dr. Blossom, your lighting sequence proposal crossed my desk. It's innovative." "Thank you." She gestured to the stool beside her. "Would you like to see the preliminary results?" To her surprise, he sat down, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and woodsy, with notes of sandalwood. As she explained her findings, their shoulders nearly touching as they peered into the microscope, she noticed the fine lines around his eyes, evidence of years spent scrutinizing details. His hands were steady as he adjusted the focus, not the soft hands of an executive who only touched keyboards, but hands that had built things. "You have a background in engineering," she said. Not a question, but an observation. Travis glanced at her, surprised. "How did you know?" "The way you handle equipment. You understand the mechanics, not just the theory." A hint of a smile tugged at his mouth. "I built my first company's prototypes myself. Couldn't afford to hire engineers." "The self-made man isn't just a cliché in your case." "No." Their hands brushed as she adjusted the microscope's fine focus, and Travis jerked back as if burned. "Is everything okay?" she asked, noticing how his breathing had quickened. "Fine," he replied stiffly, the momentary openness vanishing. "Just remembered another commitment." He stood abruptly and headed for the door, then paused. Without turning, he said, "Your work is exceptional, Dr. Blossom. Whatever resources you need, they're yours." Before she could thank him, he was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of his cologne and a confusing mixture of emotions. Nova stared at the doorway, perplexed by his abrupt shift from engaged colleague to distant executive in the span of seconds. The next day, Nova's budget was doubled without explanation. A new assistant arrived with the message that Mr. Head believes your research timeline can be accelerated with additional staff. What she couldn't see was Travis in his office afterward, pacing like a caged tiger while Jackson watched in amazement. "I can't focus," Travis muttered, running a hand through his usually immaculate hair. "This is ridiculous. I'm acting like a teenager." Jackson had never seen his boss so undone. "Perhaps you should simply ask Dr. Blossom to dinner." Travis halted mid-stride. "Don't be absurd. She's brilliant, accomplished, beautiful, and I'm—" "A genius billionaire philanthropist?" Jackson supplied dryly. Socially incompetent, Travis corrected, dropping into his chair with uncharacteristic heaviness. The last time I asked a woman to dinner was 1994, and it was a disaster. Besides, she works for me. It would be inappropriate. Jackson sighed. With respect, sir, you own the company. You make the rules. Travis dismissed the suggestion with a wave, but the seed was planted. For the first time in decades, Travis' head found himself thinking about something other than business, and it terrified him. That evening, Travis sat alone in his penthouse, a rare glass of scotch in hand, contemplating the city lights below. In his bathroom cabinet sat a prescription for anti-anxiety medication he'd never taken. Pride and stubbornness had always won out over pharmaceutical assistance. Tonight, he almost reconsidered. How had this happened? When had Dr. Nova Blossom transformed from an impressive CV into a woman who occupied his thoughts day and night? A woman whose smile made his heart race, whose intelligence challenged and excited him, whose presence made him feel simultaneously more alive and more vulnerable than he had in 30 years. Travis drained his scotch, the burn in his throat. Nothing compared to the unfamiliar ache in his chest. He was 48 years old, for God's sake, too old for infatuation, too set in his ways for connection, too damaged for love, wasn't he? Chapter 4. The Unexpected Alliance. The quarterly Investors' Gala arrived, an event Travis typically avoided, sending Jackson in his place with strict instructions to say nothing substantive and leave early. This time, however, he made an unprecedented announcement he would attend. The Pinnacle executives were shocked. Marketing scrambled to capitalize on the rare public appearance of their enigmatic leader. Security protocols were doubled. The venue, an elegant art museum transformed for the evening into a showcase of Pinnacle's innovations, buzzed with speculation about the CEO's sudden change of heart. Maybe he's dying, theorized the CFO in a hushed voice to the COO. Making amends, showing his face before the end. Don't be morbid, the COO replied. Maybe the board finally forced his hand. What no one knew was that Travis had learned Nova would be presenting her research to potential medical investors. He told himself he was simply supporting a valuable company asset, that his presence would lend credibility to her groundbreaking work. The 3 hours he spent with his personal stylist selecting the perfect tuxedo meant nothing. The fact that he'd had his barber come to his penthouse that afternoon was mere coincidence. The grand ballroom buzzed with speculation when Travis entered, commanding attention in his custom tuxedo, despite his obvious discomfort with the crowd. He nodded mechanically through introductions, his eyes scanning the room, until he spotted her. Nova stood near the research displays, resplendent in a midnight blue gown that complemented her rich brown skin, her hair swept up to reveal elegant shoulders adorned with a simple diamond pendant. She was surrounded by fascinated investors, explaining her work with passionate gestures that made the pearls at her wrist catch the light. Travis felt a sudden, irrational surge of jealousy toward the gray-haired venture capitalist leaning close to her, his hand occasionally touching her arm for emphasis. The man's interest seemed divided between Nova's groundbreaking research and her figure in the curve-hugging gown. Before he could reconsider, Travis was moving across the room, glass of sparkling water in hand. "Dr. Blossom," he interrupted, approaching their circle. "I'm pleased you could showcase your groundbreaking work tonight." The investors straightened immediately, aware of whose attention was now focused on the project. The venture capitalist's hand dropped from Nova's arm. Nova's eyes widened in genuine surprise. "Mr. Head, I didn't expect you. I was just explaining how our neural regeneration protocol shows promise for spinal cord injuries." "Perhaps you could give me a private overview," Travis suggested, surprising himself with his boldness. "I have some questions about application timelines." As they moved away from the group, Nova whispered, "Thank you for the rescue. That gentleman was more interested in my neckline than my research." Travis tensed, a protective fury rising in him that felt foreign, yet right. "That's completely unacceptable. I can have him removed." "No need," Nova laughed softly, the sound sending inexplicable warmth through Travis's chest. "I've handled worse in academia, but I appreciate having a colleague who values the work itself." Colleague. The word both relieved and disappointed him. They found a quiet corner by an exhibit showcasing Pinnacle's medical technologies. An interactive hologram displayed neural pathways, the blue light casting an ethereal glow on Nova's features. For the first time, Travis felt at ease in a social setting as they discussed her research, the technical details providing safe territory that gradually gave way to more personal conversation. When Nova mentioned a personal connection to her work, her mother's death from a degenerative condition that might have been treatable with today's regenerative therapies, Travis surprised her by sharing that his own foster father had suffered from the same disease. "Is that why Pinnacle invests so heavily in medical research?" she asked, studying his face with new understanding. Travis nodded, absent-mindedly swirling his water glass. "Though I've never told anyone that." Their eyes met, and a moment of understanding passed between them. The rest of the gala faded away, as they talked about more than medicine. Books they'd read, places they'd traveled, music they enjoyed. Travis found himself laughing genuinely for what felt like the first time in years when Nova described her disastrous attempt at learning to ski. "I spent more time horizontal than vertical," she admitted, eyes dancing with mirth. "My instructor said I was the first person he'd ever seen manage to slide backwards up a hill." "I can't picture you failing at anything," Travis said, the words emerging before he could censor them. Nova's smile softened. "That's the problem with brilliance. People forget you're human. I fail spectacularly at many things: skiing, baking, keeping houseplants alive longer than 2 weeks. Yet you can regrow human tissue. Cells are more forgiving than sourdough." "Starter," she quipped, then grew serious. "Everyone assumes success comes easily to me because they only see the results, not the process. The failed experiments, the rejected grant applications, the nights spent doubting every career choice." Travis felt something shift between them, a lowering of professional guards, a glimpse of the person behind the achievements. "I understand that better than most." "I believe you do," Nova replied softly. Across the room, Jackson watched in astonishment, nudging Diane from research, who had been drafted as his +1. "I've never seen him like this. Not once in 10 years. He's actually relaxed." Diane smiled knowingly. "They haven't looked away from each other all night. $20 says we're watching the beginning of something big." Jackson shook his head. "No bet. The man installed a direct elevator to the medical floor last week. I think we're already in the middle of something." As the evening ended, Travis, who walked Nova to her car, an unexpected chivalry that left his security details scrambling to adjust their protocols. "I enjoyed our conversation," Nova said as they reached her vehicle, a modest hybrid that spoke to her practical nature. "You're not at all what people say." Travis raised an eyebrow. "What do they say?" "That you're brilliant but cold, remote, unapproachable." She smiled, the moonlight catching in her eyes. "They're wrong about at least 2 of those things." Before Travis could respond, she leaned up and kissed his cheek, her lips warm against his skin. "Good night, Mr. Head." "Travis," he corrected, his voice rougher than intended. "Please." Her smile widened. "Good night, Travis. Until tomorrow." He stood frozen in the parking garage long after her taillights disappeared, his hand touching the spot where her lips had been. His security team maintained a discreet distance, though he could imagine their confusion at his uncharacteristic behavior. In his penthouse that night, Travis stood at his window, watching the city lights. For the first time in 30 years, the view seemed lonely rather than peaceful. He thought of Nova, her intelligence, her compassion, her ability to make him feel seen rather than just observed. The way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, the subtle scent of her perfume, something with notes of jasmine and vanilla. His phone chimed with a text message, unusual at this hour. It was from Nova. "Thank you for making tonight bearable. Your insights on neural connectivity made me rethink our approach. Sending you the revised protocol now. Let me know your thoughts." And Travis smiled at the screen, typing a response before he could overthink it. "Happy to help. Will review by morning. And thank you for making an event I usually avoid the best evening I've had in years." His finger hovered over the send button for a full minute before he pressed it, heart hammering ridiculously. When her response came, a simple smiley face, he felt an absurd surge of happiness. Travis Head, who had built a technological empire through ruthless focus and emotional detachment, fell asleep that night thinking not of stock prices or market shares, but of a brilliant doctor's smile and the possibility that 30 years of solitude might finally be coming to an end. The change in Travis was subtle but unmistakable. He began taking lunch in the company cafe rather than his office. He attended department meetings he'd previously delegated. He used the stairs occasionally, claiming it was for exercise, though employees noticed these fitness journeys inevitably took him past the medical research department. He even smiled occasionally, a genuine expression that transformed his austere features and caused one intern to nearly faint from shock. Most telling was his wardrobe. The man who had worn identical charcoal suits for a decade suddenly displayed a range of colors. Navy blues, subtle grays, even a burgundy tie that brought out the warmth in his amber eyes. His hair, previously precision cut every 2 weeks, now sported a slightly softer style that made him look years younger. The office rumor mill worked overtime. Whispers followed Travis through the corridors, theories ranging from a terminal diagnosis, explaining his sudden embrace of life, to a personality-altering brain parasite, explaining his unprecedented sociability. The truth, that Travis Head might simply be experiencing normal human emotions, seemed too far-fetched for many to accept. A secret Slack channel titled Operation Love Boss appeared, with Jackson reluctantly appointed as intelligence officer due to his proximity to Travis. The core conspiracy members, Diane from research, Marcus from IT, Elena from HR, and now Jackson, met regularly in the forgotten 8th floor break room to compare notes and strategize. "He asked me if the blue tie or the burgundy looked better yesterday," Jackson reported during one such meeting, still bemused by the memory. "When I asked what the occasion was, he mumbled something about a department review in medical." Diane grinned, dunking a cookie in her coffee. "He wore the blue." Nova mentioned it brought out his eyes. "You're monitoring their conversations now?" Jackson asked, alarmed. "Please," Diane waved dismissively. "I work in the lab next door. The walls are glass. I'm not spying, I'm observing." Elena, the romantic of the group, sighed dreamily. "They're perfect for each other. She's so warm and open, and well, he needs that. But they're both completely clueless," Marcus pointed out, his fingers flying over his tablet as he programmed something. "The boss looks at her like she hung the moon but clams up whenever she gets too close, and she thinks he's just being a supportive CEO. That's where we come in," Elena declared, leaning forward conspiratorially. "Travis Head has given everything to build this company. It's time we gave something back, like a nudge toward happiness." Jackson shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not sure we should be meddling in the boss's personal life." "We're not meddling," Elena corrected. "We're facilitating. Big difference." Their first attempt, scheduling Travis and Nova as co-presenters for a medical technology conference. They backfired spectacularly when Travis, panicking at the prospect of public speaking alongside Nova, sent Jackson in his place with a flimsy excuse about an emergency board meeting. "I told you he wasn't ready for that level of exposure," Jackson chided. "The man gets nervous ordering coffee. If the barista is too attractive, you wanted to put him on stage with the woman he can barely form sentences around." Their second attempt involved a contrived elevator malfunction that trapped Travis and Nova between floors for 20 minutes. While they did engage in conversation, the practical Travis spent most of the time on his phone with maintenance, demanding immediate action and threatening termination if the problem wasn't resolved promptly. "My crowning moment as a computer engineer," Marcus lamented afterward, "using my skills to hack the elevator system, and he spends the entire time on the phone instead of making a move." "We need something more organic," Diane insisted after these failures. "Something that forces them to see each other as people, not colleagues." Meanwhile, unaware of the conspiracy forming around them, Travis and Nova continued their professional dance. Their interactions remained largely work-focused, though occasional personal details slipped through the cracks of their professional facades. Nova learned that Travis played classical piano, a hobby he'd maintained since childhood foster homes where it provided an escape from chaotic surroundings. Travis discovered Nova's passion for stargazing, inherited from her astronomer father. Small gifts began appearing on Nova's desk, a rare medical text she'd mentioned wanting to read, a specially calibrated microscope that made her research easier, a telescope for her office window that appeared mysteriously after she commented on the clear view of the night sky from the medical floor. Nova never mentioned these gifts during their meetings, leaving Travis uncertain whether she appreciated them or found them intrusive. His uncertainty made him retreat periodically, creating a frustrating pattern of approach and withdrawal that left both of them confused. The opportunity for the Operation Love Boss team arose when Nova proposed a weekend research retreat to finalize her team's major project. The Mountain Research Facility, a luxury lodge Travis had built for executive think tanks that was rarely used, would provide the perfect setting for concentrated work without city distractions. Jackson, now fully committed to the conspiracy, despite his initial reservations, convinced Travis that his presence was essential. "The Tokyo investors will only release the final funding tranche with your direct approval of the protocols," he lied smoothly, maintaining eye contact with practiced ease. "It's just 2 days. At the Mountain Research Facility. Can't they approve remotely?" Travis asked, though Jackson noticed he was already checking his calendar. "They specifically requested in-person oversight. Something about previous investments in similar technology that underperformed. They trust your scientific judgment." Jackson paused strategically. "Of course, if you're uncomfortable working alongside Dr. Blossom for that length of time." "I didn't say that," Travis replied quickly. "I'm perfectly capable of maintaining professional boundaries." "Of course, sir," Jackson agreed, hiding his smile. "I'll make the arrangements." What Travis didn't know was that the team retreat had been whittled down through manufactured emergencies and conflicts until only he and Nova would be attending, with the rest joining by video conference, which would mysteriously fail. Due to weather interference orchestrated by Marcus in IT, Nova was equally deceived, told that Travis was bringing potential investors who needed privacy and discretion. "Japanese business culture values personal connections," Elena explained to her. "Mr. Head feels your research deserves their full financial backing." The weekend approached with both Travis and Nova making preparations. Travis spending hours selecting appropriate casual clothes, a concept foreign to his suit-only wardrobe. Nova preparing exhaustive research documentation to impress the non-existent investors. The Operation Love Boss team held their final planning meeting the day before. The retreat. Everything's arranged, Marcus confirmed. Internet will mysteriously fail Friday evening. Cell reception will be spotty at best. The chef will prepare a romantic dinner for two instead of the buffet they're expecting. And I've programmed the fireplaces to turn on automatically at sunset, because nothing says romance like firelight. The wine cellar is stocked with vintages specifically selected to pair with their dinner, Diane added. And I've made sure Nova's favorite music is the only option on the sound system. This is either going to work brilliantly or get us all fired, Jackson observed dryly. Elena smiled confidently. Trust me, they just need the right environment. The rest will take care of itself. None of them could predict exactly how right and wrong their plans would turn out to be, or how the mountain retreat would indeed change everything, though not in the way they anticipated. Chapter 6. The Revelation. The mountain retreat changed everything. When Travis and Nova both arrived at Pinnacle's luxury mountain lodge to find they were the only attendees, their initial confusion quickly gave way to suspicion. Where are the Japanese investors? Nova asked, standing in the grand entryway with her research materials clutched to her chest. Travis frowned, checking his phone for the third time. And where is the research team? Jackson assured me they'd be here by now. A discreet cough drew their attention to the lodge's caretaker, an elderly man with twinkling eyes. I'm afraid the storm has knocked out the internet and most cell service, he explained, gesturing to the panoramic windows where snow was beginning to fall heavily. The team called earlier to say they won't make it until the weather clears. Likely Sunday afternoon. And the investors? Nova pressed. The caretaker looked confused. No other guests are expected this weekend, Dr. Blossom. A moment of awkward silence stretched between them as realization dawned. Travis checked his messages one last time before stowing his phone with a resigned sigh. I think we've been set up, Nova said, looking at the romantic dinner for two, laid out in the lodge's dining room, complete with candles and wine. This has Elena from HR written all over it. Travis's expression darkened. I'll have whoever's responsible for this unprofessional behavior fired, Nova finished, laughing. Travis, look at this effort. Someone wants you to be happy. That's not a firing offense. It was the first time she'd used his first name without the formality of a business setting, and the sound of it stopped his tirade instantly. Something in her easy familiarity disarmed him completely. She picked up the wine bottle, examining. The label, 2005 Bordeaux, excellent vintage. Would be a shame to waste it, don't you think? And I don't know about you, but I'm starving after that drive. Travis stared at her, then at the romantic setting, and finally laughed, a real unguarded sound that transformed his face. The rare expression took years off his appearance, revealing dimples she'd never noticed before. I believe we've been outmaneuvered, Dr. Blossom. She smiled, pouring 2 glasses of wine. Nova, if we're having dinner together, you should call me Nova. Nova, he repeated, as if testing how the name felt on his tongue. It suits you. Bright. Extraordinary. Their eyes met over the candlelight, and for once, Travis' head didn't look away. The elaborate meal, clearly prepared with romantic intentions, provided a natural icebreaker. As they savored each course, their conversation flowed more easily than either expected. Away from the office, surrounded by pristine wilderness visible through the lodge's expansive windows, Travis and Nova abandoned their professional personas. Did you always want to be a doctor? Travis asked, swirling the ruby liquid in his glass. Nova considered the question. Not always. I wanted to be an astronaut first, hence the name my astronomy-obsessed father gave me, then a ballerina briefly. Medicine came later after my mother got sick. Pancreatic cancer, you mentioned? She nodded, a shadow crossing her features. By the time they diagnosed it, there was little they could do. I was 14, watching the strongest woman I knew wither away while doctors stood by helplessly. I decided then I'd find ways to heal what others couldn't. Travis's eyes softened with understanding. And now your regenerative research might help future patients with similar conditions. That's the hope. She studied him curiously. What about you? Was technology always your passion? Escape was my passion, he admitted, surprising himself with his candor. Foster homes aren't always nurturing environments. Computers made sense when people didn't. They followed logical rules. They didn't lie or disappoint or leave. Nova's hand moved across the table, coming to rest lightly on his. The simple touch sent warmth cascading through him. And now you've built an empire on understanding what machines can do that people can't. Or perhaps what machines and people can do together, he corrected, not withdrawing from her touch. Technology. Augmenting humanity's natural capabilities, like my research, Nova realized. Cellular technology helping the body heal itself. Exactly. Travis smiled, a genuine expression rather than his usual tight-lipped approximation. Perhaps we're not so different in our goals, just our methods. After dinner, they moved to the lodge's great room, where a fire crackled invitingly in the massive stone fireplace. Outside, snow continued to fall, transforming the mountainside into a private wonderland that isolated them further from the outside world. The next morning, they hiked alpine trails, Nova teasing Travis about his designer hiking boots, while he marveled at her knowledge of local flora. Despite his initial reluctance, Travis found himself enjoying the physical exertion and Nova's enthusiastic commentary on the ecosystem around them. These wildflowers only bloom for 2 weeks a year, she explained, kneeling beside a patch of vibrant blue blossoms. Isn't that amazing? All that preparation for such a brief moment of beauty. Travis watched her face, animated with wonder, and felt something shift inside him, as if a door long bolted shut had suddenly creaked open. Some things are worth the wait, he said quietly. In the evening, they sat before the lodge's fireplace, their research forgotten as conversation flowed from childhood dreams to future hopes. Travis found himself sharing stories he'd told no one, about foster homes, both cruel and kind, about coding his first program at 12 using a borrowed computer, about the loneliness of success. Why have you stayed alone all these years? Nova asked softly, curled in an armchair across from him, firelight dancing across her features. Surely there have been women who saw past the wealth to the man. Travis considered deflecting, but found he wanted her to understand. There were a few in the beginning, before the money, but after Pinnacle took off, he stared into his whiskey glass, the amber liquid reflecting the firelight. There was someone, about 15 years ago. Vivian. I thought she loved me. Turned out she loved the idea of being a billionaire's wife more. What happened? I overheard her on the phone with her sister, plotting how to lock down the deal before I came to my senses. She had already planned how to spend my money after the divorce she was anticipating. His laugh held no humor. I learned my lesson. Easier to be alone than to wonder about motives. Nova's expression held no pity, only understanding. People are often drawn to wealth and power. It's human nature. Is that why you're here? The question escaped before he could stop it, his deepest fear exposed. Rather than being offended, Nova smiled gently. I'm here because my research can help people, because Pinnacle's resources can turn theoretical treatments into actual healing. And I'm sitting here with you because I've never met anyone who understands both the science and the reason behind it so completely. Her honesty disarmed him. When she moved to sit beside him on the sofa, The warmth of her nearness broke through barriers he'd maintained for decades. "I'm not good at this," he admitted, voice rough with emotion. "Connections, people, you deserve someone who is." Nova took his hand in hers. "I've dated good at this men, charming men who said all the right things and felt nothing beneath the words. I prefer sincerity, even when it's awkward." When she leaned toward him, Travis met her halfway. Their first kiss was tentative, questioning. The second answered with certainty. Later, as moonlight streamed through mountain windows, Travis and Nova discovered each other with the wonder of explorers charting unknown territories. For a man who had denied himself human connection for so long, each touch was revelation. The softness of her skin beneath his calloused fingers, the sound of her breath catching as he traced patterns down her spine, the way she whispered his name like a prayer. For Nova, who had prioritized her career over relationships, finding both intellectual and emotional resonance in one person seemed miraculous. Travis's careful attention to her responses, his reverent exploration of her body, his whispered confessions of longing, all revealed a passion she'd never expected from the reserved executive. In the quiet aftermath, Travis watched Nova sleep beside him, scarcely believing she was real. Her braids splayed across the pillow, her hand still reached toward him even in sleep, her lips slightly parted. The vulnerability he'd feared all his life had found him anyway, and now that it had, he found himself embracing it rather than running away. Morning brought reality back into focus. As they prepared to return to the city, Travis grew quiet, distant. "Regrets?" Nova asked directly, watching him retreat behind invisible walls. "No," he answered immediately, meeting her gaze. "But complications. I'm your employer, Nova. There are ethical considerations, power imbalances." She interrupted him with a kiss. "I'm a department head with an independent research grant portfolio worth millions. I can find another position tomorrow if needed. This isn't about power or careers. For me, what is it about then?" Nova touched his face, bringing his eyes to meet hers. "It's about finding someone who sees me, truly sees me, and whom I see in return. Isn't that what everyone is looking for?" Travis wrapped her in his arms, breathing in the scent of her. "I've spent 30 years not looking. Now I can't imagine looking away." When they returned to Pinnacle Tower on Monday, they maintained professional distance in public. But the changed atmosphere between them was unmistakable. Travis's eyes followed Nova whenever she entered a room. Nova's smile held secret knowledge when addressing him in meetings. The Operation Love Boss conspirators exchanged triumphant glances, mission accomplished. Their satisfaction, however, would be short-lived. What no one could anticipate was how quickly their carefully constructed happiness would be tested, or how the very depths of Travis's fears would soon be realized in ways that threatened everything they had begun to build together. Chapter 7. Storms Gathering. For 6 blissful months, Travis and Nova moved beyond their initial connection into a profound relationship that transformed them both. Travis emerged from his self-imposed isolation, accompanying Nova to medical conferences, cultural events, and even the occasional dinner with her friends. The business press marveled at the new Travis Head, accessible, engaged, almost approachable. One financial magazine ran a cover story titled "The Titan Thawed," speculating about the reasons behind his transformation. Travis arranged his schedule to spend evenings with Nova whenever possible. They alternated between his minimalist penthouse and her warmly eclectic apartment, gradually leaving items at each other's places. His reading glasses on her nightstand, her favorite tea in his kitchen cupboard. Small infiltrations that signaled growing permanence. Nova flourished with Travis's unwavering support, her research advancing rapidly toward clinical trials. Their intellectual partnership proved as powerful as their emotional one. Many evenings found them debating scientific approaches across dinner tables or while walking through the city, theoretical concepts flowing between them with the ease of long-established collaborators. They kept their relationship professional at Pinnacle, though the entire company now knew. Travis addressed this directly, implementing clear reporting structure changes to ensure Nova's department had objective oversight through the board's scientific advisory committee rather than directly through him. "You're good for each other," Jackson commented one evening as Travis left the office at a reasonable hour for the first time in memory. "I've worked for you for 11 years, and I've never seen you happy until now." Travis allowed himself a smile, adjusting his tie, navy blue, Nova's favorite. "I didn't know what I was missing." That night, in Nova's apartment overlooking the river, they sat on her balcony sharing a bottle of wine as the city lights twinkled below them. Travis seemed pensive, watching Nova as she described her latest research breakthrough. "You're staring," she noted with amusement, tucking a stray braid behind her ear. "I'm appreciating," he corrected, taking her hand. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a gesture that had become habitual. "Move in with me." Nova's eyes widened at the unexpected proposal. "My place, your place, or somewhere new that's ours," Travis continued, the words tumbling out. "I just want to fall asleep beside you every night and wake up with you every morning." Nova set down her wineglass, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "Are you sure you've lived alone for 30 years? It's a big adjustment." "I'm sure about you," Travis said simply. "The rest is just logistics." Nova kissed him deeply, then whispered, "Yes, a place that's ours." They began looking at properties the following week. Penthouse apartments, brownstones with character, even a house in the suburbs with actual yard space. Travis, accustomed to making unilateral decisions, found himself enjoying the collaborative process of finding a home together. Life seemed perfect, until Vivian Blackwell returned. Travis's ex had married a European aristocrat after their breakup, but now, freshly divorced and back in America, she saw Travis's transformation in the media and recognized an opportunity. If he was finally opening his heart, she intended to reclaim her position. Her first attempt came at a charity gala where Nova was presenting on Pinnacle's medical philanthropy. Vivian approached Travis while Nova was on stage, sliding into the seat beside him with practiced grace. At 45, she remained striking, willowy and elegant in a designer gown that cost more than most people's cars. Her blonde hair arranged in an artful updo, her features surgically maintained to defy age. "You look wonderful, Travis," she purred, her perfume cloud enveloping him, the same scent she'd worn 15 years ago. "Happiness suits you." Travis stiffened, recognizing her voice before he turned. "Vivian, unexpected. I've been following your work. Pinnacle has grown impressively under your leadership." Her hand brushed his arm, long fingers adorned with diamonds. "I've grown too, learned what's truly important." Travis moved away from her touch, eyes fixed on Nova at the podium. "I'm glad to hear it. If you'll excuse me, I want to catch the rest of Dr. Blossom's presentation." Vivian's eyes narrowed as she followed his gaze to Nova. "Of course. She's brilliant, they say, and quite beautiful, though perhaps young for such responsibility. There are whispers, you know, about how—" She rose so quickly, Travis's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching beneath the skin. Dr. Blossom earned her position through extraordinary talent and dedication. Anyone suggesting otherwise is misinformed or malicious. Vivian smiled thinly, perfectly shaped eyebrows arching. "Such loyalty. I remember when you defended me that—" "Away." Before Travis could respond, she pressed a business card into his hand, her fingers lingering against his palm. When you're ready to discuss the past and perhaps the future, call me. Some connections never truly break, Travis. We both know that. Travis discarded the card immediately, his momentary discomfort replaced by fury at the insinuations about Nova. But the damage was done. Vivian had been photographed with him, and by morning, tabloids were speculating about a rekindled romance between the tech billionaire and his former flame. Nova saw the photos online before Travis could explain. Though she trusted him completely, the pictures, carefully angled to suggest intimacy, stirred her deepest insecurity, that she was merely a phase in Travis's life, that he would eventually return to his kind of woman. Someone without the complications of a demanding career, someone who could focus entirely on being Mrs. Travis Head. "It's nothing," Travis assured her, finding her in her lab early the next morning. Vivian showed up uninvited. "I barely spoke to her." Nova believed him, studying his face with those penetrating eyes that always saw through his defenses. "I know. I trust you." But the seed of doubt had been planted, not about Travis's faithfulness, but about whether their worlds were truly compatible long-term, whether the shy, damaged billionaire could ever truly believe himself worthy of honest love. Vivian's campaign escalated from public, coincidental meetings to direct approaches. She sent handwritten notes recalling private moments from their past, called his private line with manufactured emergencies, even appeared at Pinnacle Tower requesting meetings about potential investments. "She's delusional," Travis told Nova after each incident. "Nothing she does matters to me." What he didn't realize was that Vivian was simultaneously working another angle. Having failed to drive a wedge between them directly, she began spreading rumors in medical circles about Nova's research, suggesting her results were overstated and her methods questionable. As a respected socialite with connections throughout the scientific funding community, Vivian's whispers carried weight. Grant reviews that should have been routine began coming back with unprecedented questions. Potential research partners grew hesitant. "It's odd," Nova confided to Travis one evening as they prepared dinner together in his penthouse kitchen. "The Friedman Foundation suddenly wants additional verification steps that weren't in the original grant parameters, and Bremen Pharmaceuticals has gone completely silent about our partnership." Travis looked up from the vegetables he was chopping, concern furrowing his brow. "Timing issues, maybe? End of fiscal year complications?" "Maybe," Nova said, but her expression remained troubled. "It just feels coordinated somehow." Nova didn't connect these professional challenges to Vivian until a colleague mentioned hearing concerns from a close friend of Travis Head. "Apparently this woman was saying your stem cell results couldn't be replicated," her colleague explained. Uncomfortably, "She implied you might have manipulated the data for publication." The revelation that Vivian was actively undermining her career devastated Nova. Not because she believed Travis was involved, but because it confirmed her fears that their relationship would always make her achievement suspect. Would her work forever be viewed through the lens of her personal connection to Travis? When Nova confronted Travis about Vivian's interference, his cold fury was immediate. "I'll destroy her for this. Legally, financially, socially, she'll regret ever saying your name." Travis paced Nova's living room, phone already in hand to call his attorneys. The easy warmth he'd developed over their months together had vanished, replaced by the ruthless strategist who had built Pinnacle through sheer force of will. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of," Nova said quietly, stilling his movement with a gentle hand on his arm. "Your defense, while I love you for it, only reinforces the perception that I need your protection and influence." "What would you have me do?" "Nothing," Travis demanded, genuine confusion in his eyes. let her attack your reputation unchallenged. I need to fight this battle myself, Nova insisted. My work must stand on its own merits, not your defense of it. Their first serious argument escalated as Travis struggled to understand why Nova wouldn't let him use his considerable power to solve the problem immediately. His need to protect warred with her need for independence. You don't understand what she's capable of, Travis argued, running a hand through his hair in frustration. She has connections throughout the scientific community. She's ruthless, manipulative, and I'm supposed to be helpless against that. Nova countered, her voice rising uncharacteristically. I've faced skepticism and bias my entire career, Travis. I've built my reputation through rigorous science and integrity. If I let you fight this battle for me, I validate every whisper that I've succeeded because of connections rather than merit. This isn't about your capability, Travis insisted. It's about efficiency. I can end this with one phone call, and everyone will know you made that call. Every achievement after that will carry an asterisk. Did she earn this, or did Travis Head clear the path? Travis fell silent, the truth of her words sinking in. His desire to protect her was damaging the very thing she valued most, her professional integrity. In the midst of this tension, Nova received devastating news. Her aunt in Chicago, who had raised her after her mother's death, had suffered a severe stroke. She needed to leave immediately, putting their conflict on hold. We'll figure this out when you return, Travis promised as he drove her to the airport. Your aunt needs you now. Nova hugged him tightly outside the terminal. I love you. Even when we disagree, never doubt that. Travis kissed her deeply, ignoring passing travelers. Call me when you land. And Nova, I'll respect your wishes about Vivian, your career, your terms. As he watched her disappear through security, Travis couldn't shake a feeling of impending loss. Something precious and fragile hung in the balance. Neither could have predicted that their resolve would face its greatest test during their separation, or that their lives were about to change irrevocably. Days turned to weeks as Nova remained in Chicago, caring for her aunt through a difficult recovery. Her Aunt Judith had been her anchor after her mother's death, providing stability and encouragement during Nova's formative years. Now roles reversed as Nova coordinated medical care, navigated insurance complexities, and spent nights sleeping in an uncomfortable hospital chair. Communication with Travis became sporadic, brief video calls interrupted by medical emergencies or business crises, text messages that couldn't convey nuance or emotion. The distance amplified their unresolved conflict about Vivian's interference. Travis, accustomed to solving problems directly, felt helpless watching Nova struggle with both her aunt's care and the continuing professional attacks from afar. I could hire a private nursing staff, he suggested during one late-night call, the exhaustion evident in Nova's face, tearing at his heart. The best neurological specialists, whatever you need. We've already got good doctors, Nova replied, rubbing her eyes. And Aunt Judith wouldn't want strangers in her home. Then let me come there, Travis pressed. I can work remotely, help you. Nova shook her head. You have the Beijing merger. Besides, Judith doesn't need an audience for her recovery. She's a proud woman. Travis didn't voice his real concern that Nova was slipping away, the physical distance creating emotional space she filled with independence rather than need for him. His old insecurities whispered that perhaps she was realizing she didn't need him at all. Nova, fiercely independent, interpreted his repeated offers of assistance as lack of faith in her abilities. Did he think she couldn't handle medical decisions? That her medical degree somehow didn't qualify her to manage her own aunt's care? The strain of sleepless nights and constant worry made rational communication increasingly difficult. Meanwhile, Vivian escalated her campaign. When her professional, Sabotage failed to separate them. She resorted to more direct tactics. She engineered a meeting with Travis under the pretense of apologizing, ensuring they were seen at an upscale restaurant where business reporters often lunched. "I want to make amends," she claimed, eyes downcast in practiced contrition. "My behavior was inappropriate. Your happiness with Dr. Blossom is inspirational." Travis, believing this might finally end her interference, agreed to a brief public meeting. 30 minutes, he specified, in the middle of the day in a crowded restaurant. He didn't realize that Vivian had positioned them at a specific table with strategic sightlines. As she leaned forward, touching his hand with apparent earnestness, photographers captured images that, when cropped, suggested intimate conversation, rather than the tense standoff it actually was. The carefully edited images reached Nova through an anonymous well-wisher, a text message containing photos of Travis and Vivian with the message, "Thought you should know. He's falling back into old patterns while you're gone. Once a pattern, always a pattern." Nova knew they were manipulated. The restaurant was one Travis had mentioned he despised, making it unlikely he'd chosen it willingly. But she couldn't suppress the hurt seeing Travis with the woman who was actively trying to destroy her career. The timing was cruel. She just received news that her aunt's condition had deteriorated, requiring another surgery. Emotionally exhausted, Nova called Travis, needing his reassurance. He was in a board meeting and couldn't talk. "I need you," she texted simply. "In critical negotiation. Call as soon as possible," came his reply, hours later. That night, alone in her aunt's house after another grueling hospital day, Nova discovered something that changed everything. She was pregnant, with twins. The home test showed 2 clear lines, confirming what her medical training had already suspected. The fatigue she'd attributed to stress, the sensitivity to smells, the missed period she'd been too busy to notice. An emergency, ultrasound arranged through a medical school friend, revealed not 1 but 2 tiny heartbeats. The revelation left her reeling. Their relationship, while deeply committed, had never explicitly discussed children. Now, facing the biggest news of her life while her aunt lay critically ill and her career faced unprecedented challenges, Nova felt isolated and uncertain. When she finally reached Travis the next day, he was distracted, handling a major product crisis. The Beijing merger had collapsed spectacularly, taking millions in valuation with it. Competitors were already circling, and the board was in emergency session. "Can I call you back in an hour?" Travis asked, ambient noise nearly drowning his voice. "The London server is down, and we're losing millions by the minute." "No, this can't wait," Nova insisted, her hand unconsciously resting on her still flat stomach. "I need to tell you something important." "I'm listening," Travis said, but she could hear voices in the background, people demanding his attention. "I'm pregnant," she said, heart pounding, "with twins." The line went silent. For what felt like eternity, Nova heard nothing but her own heartbeat. Had he hung up? Was he still there? "Travis!" "I'm here," he finally responded, his voice strained and distant. Are you certain?" "Yes, I confirmed it yesterday." "This is unexpected." More background noise, urgent voices calling his name. "Nova, I need to handle this emergency. Can we talk tonight? Really talk without distractions?" Something in his hesitant response triggered all of Nova's insecurities. Was that fear in his voice? Reluctance? Had she misread him so completely? Was he like all the others who'd put career before relationship when challenges arose? "Sure," she said flatly, "tonight." But when evening came, exhaustion and fear overwhelmed her rational mind. Her aunt had taken a turn for the worse, the hospital calling her back urgently. Nova left Travis a brief message, "Can't talk. Medical emergency with Aunt Judith," and turned off her phone to focus on her family crisis. For hours, she sat in the surgical waiting room, mind spinning between concern for her aunt and uncertainty about her future. The pregnancy complicated everything. Her career trajectory, her independence, her relationship with a man who had spent 3 decades avoiding commitment. Would Travis welcome fatherhood or see it as the ultimate trap? Would her research suffer as she juggled motherhood with scientific pursuits? By morning, with her aunt stabilized but still critical, Nova turned her phone back on to find multiple missed calls and messages from Travis. The final one read, "I understand you need time. I'll be here when you're ready to talk, whatever you decide." Travis, receiving Nova's abrupt message after spending hours processing the life-changing news and reorganizing his priorities, had misinterpreted her brevity as rejection. Had the pregnancy news made her reconsider their relationship entirely? Was she pulling away? His insecurities, dormant during their happiness but never fully healed, resurfaced with devastating force. Every business instinct told him to fly to Chicago immediately, but he respected Nova's independence too much to impose if she needed space. Instead, he sent what he believed was a supportive message, intending to communicate that he would accept her decision about the pregnancy, that he would support her regardless of what she chose. Nova, reading this hours later after her aunt was stabilized, saw only confirmation of her worst fears. "Whatever you decide," seemed to place the burden of the pregnancy entirely on her shoulders, offering conditional support rather than partnership. In her exhausted emotional state, the words screamed abandonment rather than respect. Heartbreaking, she made the hardest decision of her life. She would return to Pinnacle only long enough to secure a research position elsewhere, preserving her professional integrity without Travis's shadow. She would raise their children independently, giving them the stable, loving home she'd fought so hard to create for herself. For two people who had found such profound connection, their inability to bridge this final gap of trust and communication threatened to destroy everything they'd built. The shy millionaire retreated into protective isolation. The brilliant doctor armored herself with independence, both believing they were protecting their hearts while unknowingly shattering them instead. Chapter 9. Breaking Through the Storm. 3 months passed without direct contact. Nova, showing slightly with her pregnancy, had accepted a prestigious position at Northwestern University Medical Center in Chicago, close to her recovering aunt. She submitted her resignation to Pinnacle through HR, avoiding Travis entirely. Her letter was professionally detached, citing personal circumstances requiring relocation, with no mention of their relationship or her condition. When Travis received her resignation, he tried calling immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. His messages, emails, and even a handwritten letter received no response. After a week of silence, pride and pain prevented him from further attempts. If Nova had decided he had no place in her life or their children's lives, he would respect her decision, no matter how it devastated him. Travis, devastated by what he perceived as Nova's rejection, withdrew once again into isolation. Pinnacle's employees watched in dismay as their leader reverted to his former remote self, only colder and more driven than before. The man who had briefly emerged from his shell, who had laughed occasionally and sometimes left the office before midnight, vanished as completely as if he'd never existed. "This is worse than before he met her," Jackson confided to the now disbanded Operation Love Boss team, meeting covertly in the 8th floor break room. At least then he was just reserved. Now he's broken. What happened between them? Eleanor wondered. They were perfect together. Jackson shook his head. He won't talk about it. Fired an executive who mentioned her name. Whatever happened in Chicago, it destroyed him. Diane, still in contact with Nova through professional channels, shared what little she knew. She's established a new research department at Northwestern, continuing the same work, but with different funding. She won't discuss Travis at all. And she's pregnant, Marcus added, having noticed the changes in Nova's appearance during their last video conference. Doesn't talk about that either, but it's becoming obvious. When Travis discovered Nova had left Pinnacle without speaking, to him he assumed the worst, that she wanted no part of him in her life or their children's lives. Pride and pain prevented him from reaching out directly, fearing another rejection he couldn't bear. Instead, he established an anonymous trust fund for the twins and arranged for Nova's research to receive substantial grant funding through a foundation not connected to Pinnacle. He would provide for them from afar, respecting what he believed was her choice. Nova, meanwhile, rebuilt her professional life while preparing for motherhood. Her aunt was recovering slowly, providing both companionship and a reminder of the fragility of connection. She threw herself into establishing her new research program, working long hours despite her pregnancy, as if professional accomplishment could fill the void left by Travis's absence. Late at night, alone in the bed they had shared during his few visits to Chicago, Nova would sometimes reach for her phone, Travis's number still on speed dial. She never pressed the button. His message had been clear enough: whatever you decide. As if their children were her solo decision, not a shared responsibility, as if he hadn't wanted to commit to parenthood. His silence after her resignation only confirmed that he had let her go without a fight. The situation might have remained at this tragic impasse if not for an unexpected intervention. Dr. Lowenthal, Nova's former deputy who had witnessed their relationship from the beginning, found himself unable to watch the needless suffering. During a routine research review with Pinnacle, the company still funded some of his projects. He found himself alone with Travis in a conference room. After the other executives had departed, Dr. Lowenthal, "The quarterly projections for your stem cell research," Travis said, all business, sliding a tablet across the table. "We'll need more detailed methodology before approving the next phase." "With respect, sir," Dr. Lowenthal began, removing his glasses and fixing Travis with a direct gaze. "Have you actually spoken to Dr. Blossom about why she left?" Travis's expression hardened, the muscle in his jaw twitching. "Dr. Blossom's departure is not up for discussion." "Then let me discuss your correspondence," Dr. Lowenthal persisted, beyond caring about professional consequences. At 67, with a distinguished career behind him, he had little to fear from corporate politics, because Nova showed me your last message to her, and if you think I'll be here when you're ready to talk, whatever you decide was adequate. Response to her pregnancy news: "You're not the man I thought you were." Travis went very still, his face a careful mask. She made her decision clear by leaving. What was clear, Dr. Lowenthal countered, was that a woman caring for a dying relative, carrying twins, and fighting professional sabotage received a lukewarm, ambiguous message from the father of her children and interpreted it as abandonment. "That's not what Travis began, then stopped. "Her aunt died?" 2 weeks after Nova told you about the pregnancy. She was alone at the funeral, handling the estate alone, preparing for twins alone, because she believed you'd given her an easy way to walk away." The truth hit Travis with physical force. Their entire separation was built on miscommunication, pride, and fear. The very walls he'd maintained his entire life until Nova had broken through them. "Where is she now?" he demanded, already reaching in for his phone. "Northwestern, leading their regenerative medicine department, though why you'd need to ask when you're funding her research through your foundation is beyond me." Travis looked startled. How did you know about that? Nova figured it out immediately. She said no one else would structure the grant requirements exactly to her research parameters. Dr. Lowenthal shook his head. You two are perfect for each other, both brilliant and completely hopeless at actual communication. That night, Travis sat in his penthouse surrounded by darkness, confronting the truth. He had failed Nova when she needed him most. His fear of vulnerability had cost him everything that mattered. For the first time in his adult life, Travis Head wept openly. Then he began to plan. In Chicago, Nova was adapting to her new reality. Her pregnancy was progressing well, her professional reputation rebuilt through groundbreaking work at Northwestern, and her aunt's house now her home. On the surface, her life was proceeding as she'd planned. But each night, alone with her thoughts, she ached for Travis. Several times she'd drafted messages explaining everything, but pride and hurt held her back. How could she have misinterpreted his feelings so completely? On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Nova returned from campus to find her front porch filled with blue hydrangeas, her favorite flowers that she'd once mentioned to Travis on their mountain retreat. Heart pounding, she pushed open her door to find Travis himself standing in her living room, soaked from the rain, his usual impeccable appearance disheveled. How did you get in? She asked, frozen in the doorway, one hand instinctively moving to her visibly pregnant belly. Your neighbor, Mrs. Castillo. I explained that I'm the father of your children and had flown 2,000 miles to beg your forgiveness. His voice broke, revealing the strain of months of separation. She thought that warranted opening the door. Nova stepped inside, closing the door behind her. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, absorbing the changes of 3 months apart. Travis looked thinner, with new lines around his eyes. His normally perfect hair was damp from the rain, curling slightly at his temples. You know about the trust fund and the research grant, she finally said, setting down her bag. Not trying to buy my way into their lives, he said quickly, taking a half step toward her before stopping himself. I just couldn't bear the thought of not providing for them, even if you wanted me gone. I never wanted you gone, Nova whispered, tears threatening. I thought you were giving me the freedom to leave because the pregnancy was unwelcome news. Travis closed his eyes in pain. Nova, learning about our children was the greatest moment of my life. I handled it terribly because I was shocked and in the middle of a crisis, but I never wanted you to face this alone. Your message was the worst communication in human history, he admitted, running a hand through his wet hair. I thought you needed space to decide if you still wanted me in your life. I was respecting your independence while trying to tell you I'd accept whatever role you allowed me. Nova let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. We're supposed to be intelligent people. Intelligence and wisdom are different things, Travis said, taking a tentative step toward her. I've spent my life building walls to protect myself. When it mattered most, I couldn't tear them down fast enough. Nova rested her hands on her growing belly. They kick now, strong little fighters. Travis's eyes filled with wonder. May I? She nodded, taking his hand and placing it where movement fluttered beneath her skin. The moment his palm connected with the evidence of their children, Travis fell to his knees before her, his forehead pressed against her stomach. I'm so sorry, he whispered, his voice raw. I will never fail you again, any of you. If you'll give me another chance, I'll spend my life making sure you never doubt how deeply I love you. Nova cradled his head against her, tears flowing freely. I thought I could do this alone. I've always done everything alone, but I don't want to, Travis. I want us to be a family. He looked up at her, eyes shining. I have the ring I bought 2 months before you left. I've carried it every day since, hoping for this moment. As Travis pulled the ring from his pocket, a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds, and asked Nova to be his wife, both finally understood that true strength wasn't in independence or control, but in the courage to be vulnerable together. "Yes," Nova whispered as he slipped the ring onto her finger. 1,000 times, yes. Their kiss was a homecoming, a promise, a new beginning. The shy millionaire and the brilliant doctor had nearly lost everything through fear and miscommunication. Now, with the storm behind them and clarity before them, they embraced a future neither had dared imagine possible. Chapter 10. Hearts Entwined. Travis and Nova stand in her Chicago living room, the rain tapping gently against the windows, their hearts beating in synchronized rhythm after months of painful separation. His hand remains on her belly, feeling the gentle movements of their twins, his eyes filled with wonder and determination. "I want to build a life with you," Travis says, his voice thick with emotion. "Not a year from now, not after careful planning, and right now, tonight, this moment." Nova's eyes glisten with tears. "What are you saying?" Travis takes both her hands in his. "I'm saying I don't want to waste another minute. The company, the money, the reputation, none of it matters without you. I let fear control me for 30 years. I won't let it steal another day." He drops to one knee, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. Inside rests an emerald ring surrounded by diamonds that catch the lamplight and transform it into dancing fire. The green stone is deep and clear, reminiscent of the forest where they first acknowledged their feelings during the mountain retreat. "My mother, my birth mother, had only one possession of value, this ring. It's the only thing I have of hers." His voice breaks, emotion cracking through his normally controlled demeanor. "I've kept it locked away, just like my heart. I want you to have both." Nova gasps, her fingers trembling as they touch the glittering heirloom. The significance of the gesture isn't lost on her. Travis, who guards his past so carefully, is offering her his most precious connection to it. "Nova Blossom, will you marry me? Will you build a family with me? Will you let me wake up beside you every morning and fall asleep with you every night for the rest of our lives?" "Yes," she whispers, then louder, "Yes." She pulls him to his feet and into her arms, the slight swell of her pregnancy pressing between them. "I never stopped loving you, not for a single moment." Their kiss blazes with passion and promise, months of longing and hurt transforming into desperate need. Travis lifts her effortlessly, carrying her to the bedroom where they rediscover each other with hungry hands and whispered declarations. His touch is reverent on her changed body, marveling at the new curves that shelter their children. "You're more beautiful than ever," he murmurs against her skin, tracing the subtle changes pregnancy has brought. "Carrying our children. I don't have words." Hours later, tangled in sheets and each other, Travis traces patterns on Nova's bare shoulder. The rain has stopped, moonlight streaming through parted curtains to bathe them in silver light. The world outside feels distant and unimportant compared to the cocoon they've created. "I've already made arrangements," Travis says, propping himself on one elbow to gaze down at her. "Jackson is handling the transition at Pinnacle. You can keep your position at Northwestern or come back to Pinnacle, with complete departmental autonomy, whatever makes you happy." Nova smiles against his chest, her fingers playing with the sparse hair there. "You've thought of everything." "Not everything." Travis sits up, suddenly energized. "The wedding. Where do you want it? When? I can have it arranged by next week." Nova laughs, pressing a finger to his lips. "Slow down, Mr. Efficiency. Some things deserve time and planning." "I've wasted too much time already," he insists, capturing her finger and kissing it. "I want to be your husband before our children are born." "And I want to be your wife," Nova assures him, her expression growing thoughtful. "But not because we're rushing, because we're choosing each other deliberately and completely." "Not wasted," Nova corrects him, resting her hand on her growing belly. "Every moment led us here, to them, to this. I wouldn't change a thing." In the days that follow, they create a new rhythm together. Travis works remotely from Chicago, transforming Nova's guest room into a home office filled with cutting-edge technology. They find a sprawling Victorian house nearby, with a garden for the children to play in and space for a state-of-the-art home laboratory for Nova to continue her research during her maternity leave. Travis approaches parenthood with the same focused intensity he applies to business, reading every pregnancy and childcare book available, hiring the city's top pregnancy specialists, and personally vetting pediatricians. Nova watches with amusement as the man who once avoided human connection now interrogates potential doctors about their medical philosophies. "You know," she teases after one particularly thorough interview, "most people just get a recommendation from friends." "Most people aren't carrying my children," Travis responds seriously, then softens when he sees her expression. "Too much?" "Just enough," Nova assures him, kissing his frown away. "I love that you care this deeply. Just remember, babies have been born successfully for thousands of years, without spreadsheets and efficiency metrics." When Dr. Lowenthal visits to discuss research collaboration, he finds them painting the nursery together, Travis in splattered designer clothes, Nova directing operations from a comfortable chair, both laughing as they argue about color schemes. "You two are disgustingly happy," he observes with a grin. "We're making up for lost time," Travis replies, not taking his eyes off Nova. Their wedding comes together with the same focused intensity that marks everything Travis does. A small, intimate ceremony in Nova's garden, with only their closest friends attending. The Operation Love Boss team flies in from headquarters, proud of the romance they helped nurture, even if it took a more circuitous path than they'd planned. On the morning of the wedding, Travis stands in the guest room that's become his temporary domain, adjusting his tie with uncharacteristically nervous fingers. Jackson watches with amusement. "I've seen you negotiate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat," his assistant observes, "yet a simple wedding has you trembling." "Those deals didn't matter," Travis replies simply. "This does." Nova, radiant in a simple white dress that showcases her 7-month pregnancy, carries a bouquet of blue hydrangeas as she walks toward Travis under an arch of white roses. Her Aunt Judith watches proudly from a wheelchair, her recovery continuing steadily. Travis waits for his bride, looking younger and more alive than anyone has ever seen him. "I was dead inside until I met you," Travis vows, his voice carrying clearly to their small gathering. "You didn't just see my potential, you saw me, broken parts and all, and showed me that vulnerability isn't weakness, but the greatest strength." Nova, eyes shining, responds with equal passion. "You think I saved you, but you saved me too. From hiding behind my work, from thinking achievement could replace connection. You taught me that true partnership doesn't diminish independence. It amplifies it into something greater than either of us could be alone." As they exchange rings, a flutter of movement makes Nova gasp softly. Taking Travis's hand, she places it on her belly where one of the twins kicks vigorously. "They're applauding," she whispers. Their first kiss as husband and wife is not the polite peck of traditional ceremonies, but a claiming, a promise, a sealed covenant that draws cheers and whistles from their friends. The reception feels more like a family dinner than a formal event. Jackson raises a toast that has everyone laughing and crying simultaneously. To the man who could program a computer to think but couldn't figure out his own heart until Nova came along. And to the brilliant doctor who performed the most. Complex operation of all, heart transplantation without a single incision. Later, as twilight bathes the garden in golden light, Travis and Nova slip away to a quiet corner, his arms wrapped protectively around her from behind. "Dr. Blossomhead," he murmurs against her ear. "How does it sound?" "Perfect," she replies, leaning back against his chest, "though my research publications might get confusing." "Use whatever name you want professionally. I didn't marry your degrees." Nova turns in his arms, studying his face with tender intensity. "You know what amazes me? How quickly everything has changed. 6 weeks ago I thought I'd lost you forever. Now we're married, about to have twins, starting a whole new life." "When you know," Travis says simply. "I wasted 30 years being afraid. I won't waste another minute." A sharp kick from one of the twins makes Nova wince and laugh simultaneously. "I think they're getting impatient to join the party." Travis kneels before her, pressing his lips to her rounded belly. "Not yet, little ones. Your mom and I have a honeymoon to enjoy first." Nova runs her fingers through his hair. "A honeymoon? When did you arrange that?" "I have a cabin on a private lake about an hour from here. Just us, the water, and absolute silence." He rises, cradling her face in his hands. 1 week of undisturbed, newlywed bliss before these two arrive, and sleep becomes a distant memory. That night, in the rustic luxury of the lakeside cabin, Travis and Nova stand on the deck overlooking moonlit water. The summer air carries the scent of pine and possibility as they sip sparkling cider from champagne flutes. "To new beginnings," Travis says, clinking his glass against hers. "And to second chances," Nova adds, her free hand resting on her belly. "And third and fourth chances, too." Travis sets down his glass, drawing her into his arms. "I keep thinking I'll wake up and find this was all a dream, that I'm back in my empty penthouse alone." "Not a dream," Nova assures him, guiding his hand to where one of the twins kicks energetically. "Very real, and about to get even more real in approximately 6 weeks." "I can't wait," Travis's voice holds wonder, rather than fear. "I'd never imagined I'd be a father. Now I can't imagine not being one." "You'll be amazing," Nova says with absolute certainty. "You have more love in you than anyone I've ever met. You just needed permission to show it." Their lovemaking that night is tender, accommodating her advanced pregnancy, yet lacks none of the passion that ignited between them from the beginning. Travis worships every inch of her changed body, his touch reverent and possessive all at once. Afterward, Nova sleeps peacefully in his arms while Travis remains awake, watching her, still unable to believe that his life has transformed so completely. The shy millionaire who once couldn't look a woman in the eye now holds his entire world in his arms, his brilliant wife and their unborn children. "I'll never let you doubt how much I love you," he whispers to her sleeping form. "Not for a single day." As if in response, Nova nestles closer in her sleep, her hand seeking his even in unconsciousness. Outside their window, the first light of dawn breaks over the lake, painting the water in shades of promise. The man who spent 30 years in self-imposed isolation now embraces connection with every fiber of his being. The woman who healed others while keeping her own heart carefully guarded now trusts completely. Together, they've created not just new life but a new way of living, vulnerable, passionate, and utterly authentic. In this perfect moment of peace before their world expands with the arrival of their children, Travis and Nova have already discovered the greatest truth, that love doesn't make you weaker, but infinitely stronger, especially when it arrives in the most unexpected ways.